Hi, everyone. It's a ticket to Christ. Thank you for tuning back in. We're looking at Ruth. Actually, Ruth and Naomi. We're talking about strengthening your convictions. And these two women had very strong convictions. And I think this is a good book to study through if you're looking at convictions, if you're looking at loyalty. A lot of times we look at Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and overlook just a simple account and just very interesting. And we're not going to read the whole thing, but we're just going to skip it, look at just the main intro and a couple of other points. And so it's talking about how Naomi and her husband Elimelech and his two sons left Israel. They left Bethlehem in Judah and they went to the country of Moab, right? So while he was there, verse 2, it says the name of the man was Elimelech, as we said, and the name of his wife Naomi, and the name of his two sons Mahlon and Chilion. Ephrathites of Bethlehem, Judah. So they were of the tribe of Ephraim, because they were Ephrathites, right? So that's from Joseph's line. That's why they were born in Bethlehem, because that's Rachel, their mother, right? That lineage. So they came to Moab, and Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left with her two sons, and they took wives, Ruth and Orpah. And then eventually those sons died after 10 years. So they were married 10 years and they were still in Moab living there, and then they died. I don't know how they died. It says verse 5, and the woman was left of her two sons and her husband, meaning Naomi. So in those days, women were dependent on their husbands and on their sons. If their husbands died, that's how they had protection. That's how they got provision. It was through the male heir, right? So here she is, no male heir and two daughters, right? And so basically it was a position in that culture, in that time, of lack of protection and lack of provision, right? All provision, everything that you would have considered your wealth, your protection, your provider was gone. That's how they took it then. And so she decided, well, I'm going to go back home to Bethlehem. And Naomi, that is, said to her daughters-in-law, well, no point you coming with me because you're still young. I'm an older woman. I can't provide for you, and I don't have, even if I had a child, right, he would be too young for you to marry him. So go find yourself husbands among your own people. Verse 8, she says, and God bless you. And she blessed them, that go find a husband from your own family. She sent them back to their mothers. But it said, both said to her, we're going to go with you to your people. And Naomi insisted. She says, no, why are you going to go with me? I don't have any way of providing for you. I don't have any husband. I don't have any sons. Go to your, back to your own household, because I'm too old to do anything for you. So she, in essence, was just being very generous to these daughters-in-law. And we're going to pick up here in verse 14. It says, and they lifted up their voice and wept again. And Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clave unto her. And she said, behold, thy sister-in-law is gone back unto her people and unto her gods. Return thou after thy sister-in-law. And Ruth said, entreat me not to leave thee or to return from following after thee, for whither thou goest I will go, and where thou lodgest I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people, and thy God my God. Right? And then she, goes on to say only death could part. But what I notice here, the foundation here is Naomi sent them back to their gods and their people, and Orpah went back to her gods and her people, but Ruth didn't. Ruth had converted to the one and only God, to the truth. So it was like she became a Christian. If you want to put it into New Testament ways of the truth of belief, right? But at that time, it was she became an Israelite. She became a follower of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? And that's the only God. And converted to the people, the truth of the word, became a part of Naomi. So Naomi's family. So Naomi, in essence, adopts her as a daughter, and they go back to to Bethlehem. And when they went back, the whole place was astir. That's what it says, because Naomi came back bitter. She came back with everything gone. And she came back with a daughter-in-law, and everybody knew she was a foreigner. And when they came, it was the beginning of harvest. But Ruth and Naomi, the relationship they had, Naomi's impact, first of all, on her daughter-in-law, Ruth, was incredible. That because of Naomi, Ruth became God's, turned to the real God, changed her life, came into the people of God and became part of the people of God, and served her mother-in-law with loyalty. So what I see here is, you read through, you see Ruth going out to make a living to help support them, because she, of course, is a young one and is able to do that. And Naomi's obviously too old to do it. And but Ruth does it under the direction of what Naomi tells her to do. So Naomi tells her where to go, how to go about gleaning in the field after the reapers. It was the law that, poor people could come and pick up whatever is left over for free. And so she, gave her, that advice. And it looks like Ruth was led into Boaz's field, and it obviously the hand of God. And she worked really hard, it said, had a lot of integrity, so much so people noticed that she was working really hard and taking care of Naomi, her mother-in-law. And as a result of that, she lands a husband, Boaz, who is Naomi's kinsman redeemer for that family. And through Naomi's instructions and Ruth's loyalty to her, we're able to pick up in Ruth chapter 4 from verse 13. And it says, so Boaz took Ruth, and she was his wife. And when he went in unto her, the Lord gave her conception, and she bare a son. And the women said unto Naomi, Blessed be the Lord, which hath not left thee this day without a kinsman, that his name may be famous in Israel. And he shall be unto thee a restorer of thy life, and a nourisher of thine old age. For thy daughter-in-law, which loveth thee, which is better to thee than 7 sons, hath borne him. And Naomi took the child and laid it in her bosom, and became nurse unto it. And the women, her neighbors, gave it a name, saying, There is a son born to Naomi. And they called his name Obed. He is the father of Jesse, the father of David. So we see here, as a result of just the loyalty of Ruth to Naomi and Naomi to Ruth, and both of them to God, and to, staying faithful with God, going back to Bethlehem, and just really submitting to God. Ruth could very easily have done what Orpah did and gone back to the people of Moab and worshiped their false god, but she didn't do that. She was loyal and faithful to the God that she was taught of by Naomi and her husband. And she came back and, lived as an Israelite, someone who was a people of God, and got rewarded, right? Not only with, being redeemed by Naomi's kinsman redeemer, but is the great grandmother of King David. And of course, our Lord Jesus came from that lineage. we see Boaz is the father of Obed, who is the father of Jesse, who is David's father. And this happened to Ruth because she changed and followed God, followed God's followed Naomi, who was who was a part of God's people. And so we can see that this is a great example and inspiring account of something that happened, and something that does happen when we are faithful in the midst of challenge, in loss, in difficulty, when we have strong convictions. Ruth didn't just turn to God because of her husband. It looks like she turned to God because she believed. She had true faith in him. And so that's why she went with Naomi. And out of everybody in Bethlehem, she was the one that God chose to be David's great grandmother. And she was a foreigner. She was a Moabite. She wasn't, even of the original tribe. So she married into it. And God used her life in a powerful way. And I think this is a great account of having strong convictions when hard times coming, not looking at who you are, your circumstance, where you come from, even what has happened to you, but putting your eyes on God, on his faithfulness and what he's able to do. And through this account, I see a pattern and a type in Boaz with Ruth, with the whole account. If you read through it, you will see a lot of similarities with God redeeming us, and just with how, you could see Boaz noticing Ruth's integrity, noticing her character, and Ruth being someone who took advice, because Naomi gave her instructions and counsel, and she took that advice. And it's so funny, when she took the last advice, which Naomi gave to her so that she could land the husband. If you read Ruth chapter 3, verse 16, when she came back, it says, and when she came to her mother-in-law, she said, "Who art thou, my daughter?" Right? So she did what her mother-in-law, so she comes in, her mother says, "Who are you now?" Meaning, are you engaged? Are you his fiance? Are you going to be his fiance? Who are you? What is your new status? And so when she showed her mother-in-law, verse 17, what she was given, her mother-in-law knew that this is it, that Boaz was going to marry her. And so this is just an inspiring account of redemption, of new beginnings, of God's plan, of just incredible things that God can do for us who have strong convictions, who make the right decisions. If she did not choose to follow Naomi and, choose that path, she wouldn't be the great grandmother of King David, but through her loyalty, her obedience, her character, here you have it. And it just shows you, that God can use any life, any obedient life, to do incredible things. And so that's a great account of having strong convictions. The story of Ruth and Naomi. Naomi, for going back to her people, even though she went back bitter, God rewarded her as well, because in verse 16 and 17, the neighbors are saying that this is your child, Naomi. So in essence, Ruth shared him with Naomi, of course, as his grandmother. So she shared in that as well. So even though they were not blood relatives, they were spiritual relatives, and spiritually Naomi was his grandmother-in-law in a sense, but Naomi would be related to him from Boaz, because Boaz was her husband's brother, younger brother. That's what it looks like from this account. So, beloved, that is it from me. I hope this is encouraging you, inspiring you as you study through the book of Ruth, and that you're able to look at both Ruth and Naomi and seeing their convictions not only in the midst of trouble and challenges, but also how they used wisdom and made right decisions of integrity in keeping with the laws of the Lord, and how through that, God, incredible things happened in their lives. God loves you so much. Have a great day.